I can see that Megan and Charlie have just joined us.
Hey Paula, how's it going?
Hello.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
All right,
Let me just
give
turn
me a
this
second.
volume up. We're just getting set up. Sorry, we're running a little late.
Are you guys joining from the new office?
Yeah, we're in our
Yes.
temporary workspace. And hi, Tina. I love how she's waving. I feel so discombobulated. It's like I think I just walked in circles for the last 60
Can
seconds.
you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
I had a whole plan to just pretend to water the plants. It's all fake, of course.
It's all fake.
These aren't real.
This is our new plastic background that was here. We're in a temporary space as we're building the flagship. And we're trying to figure out the lighting. I mean, it's like, sorry, we're just a little out of sorts. We're going to get into it, though. We have a good notebooks in the background. I know we have notebooks in the background.
Notebooks in the background.
The new digs are, we have a lot of space for the four of us, but it's not home, you know? I feel a little homesick. I'm not
So
gonna
6
lie.
months we're here. We spent the last week packing and throwing away, God forbid, an amount of 15 years in the office and discovering really cool stuff. One of these days, I'm going to have Megan present where she crossed the line from being what I would call an employee to an owner of the business. It's a great story of a check I gave her in 2002 for $1,000. And it's something out of my own personal account because the company had no money. And she's the only one who gave it back to me and just refused to take it. And then a couple of years later, I gave her 10 grand in cash as we did better. But it's just
cool.
a great story. But
He
in
found
cleaning,
the actual check. It's January 28th, 2002. So it was like,
I found
you
the original
know,
check.
it's kind of cool.
So we're gonna frame
19
it.
years ago.
It's going to be cool in the new office.
Yes, we found
Okay.
some cool mementos while we were packing.
Let's
Anyways,
see.
we're here. Do we look okay, you guys? You can see us. It's all good. I love how Jay is wearing his lip t-shirt and Sarah and Ruth. This is fun. Good stuff,
So,
guys.
like we always do, use the chat, as we had said before, be aggressive with the chat. So if you don't know how to use it, just try to use it now. Punch in, life events, birthdays, weddings, and we have good and bad things happening, both things. Just so everyone knows what's going on in our lives and, and anything special. So we moved, obviously, that's our big life event, but
Our big life event is moving.
let's see.
Let's see.
Looking
Jay's
back, looking forward,
representing.
what do you guys have going on?
You scroll through. Let me see everybody who's here.
see the
Oh, I
chat.
can do it. Yeah, I can see the chat. But I want to see the life event. Molar removed. Ooh, sorry, Tiffany. That's not fun as an adult. Oh, Simon's
Wife's
birthday,
35th
35th. Okay,
birthday.
good stuff. 35.
Simon's revealing either his
Yeah.
age or his
Yeah, and that's
cougar
when you.
wife or whatever.
It's when you
whichever way
turn
it is.
AMA for childbearing. That's all I remember when I turned 35. Good and bad. Last day. Oh wow, Shayla, you're leaving your company. Where are you going? Do you know where you're going? Yeah, we want you to be aggressive with the chat as a reminder, you guys. We want you to be aggressive. Like obviously there's stuff that could be distracting, but like be aggressive with the chat. as
Aggressive
much as
meaning
possible. As
speak
in,
up, but
What's
like,
on your mind?
But
Yes.
be kind, right? When I say be kind, being like, don't be a jerk, right?
Yeah.
Yes, if you are a jerk, we will, at some point when you start getting highly offensive, we'll probably ask you not to join our
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, like, I think, look, we all have bad days, we make mistakes and,
Oh, wow. Chris Kelly, you ran away to Arizona and got to go to the Painted Desert during a sunset. I don't even know what the Painted Desert is, but it sounds awesome.
so
Oh, no, Sheila's being let go. Okay. So this is where, okay. So we have a lot of work to do next 6 months.
we're going to do a
Let's
lot of
this.
training. We're going to do a lot of training. I think a lot of people kicked off. So how about this? Let us jump in straight
Yeah,
into this
let's
thing.
do it.
I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. You can hopefully see that, which is not the important thing to see. This, can you see that, guys? Thumbs up? Yes, maybe?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, let me move this over.
A bit of a recap from last week. For those of you who are new joining us, we're just doing a quick recap of what we did last week, and then we're going to get into training with a purpose. Karate Kid.
So some of you have started to watch the new
Cobra
series
Kai.
Cobra Kai. I think a third season came out now. It's kind of a remake and kind of continuation of the Karate Kid, which when I grew up was a big popular movie. This is a scene in the upper right of the final tournament, that crane move that,
so good.
LaRusso does to Daniel's son to actually win the whole thing. Sorry, I ruined the movie a little bit for you if you want, but the picture in the middle, the main picture, and it's kind of shows up in this new series Cobra Kai as well, where am I being trained to be a fighter? or am I cleaning your place?
Yes.
Am I being
Slave.
trained, or am I a slave, sanding your floor, painting your fence, waxing your cars? And this notion of training with a purpose. If you train but don't have a reason to train, if you try to learn, if you try to improve, but don't have a place to apply it, you'll see that training quickly becomes a feeling of sanding someone's floors, painting someone's house. It lacks meaning. It lacks meaning in the same way you really rarely will improve. So the notion of understanding how important purpose is, kind of a goal, a mission, but understanding, of course, how it works together with training is what we're going to go into. So just really quick recap from last week's LIP class. And the main lesson here is the lesson from one of Google's first investors, which is you want to invest when others are not. Life is very hard and very competitive. And to advance and to succeed in the world, you have to run harder when others are not. You have to invest when others are not. The notion of investing disproportionately to the crowd, disproportionately to what the average person does. And Megan had written this thing, which is right now is an opportunity to invest, to break out when most of the world is hibernating. And let's do this together as a team over the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. And so I think with the pandemic and, it seems to get worse right now, and there's new variations coming from I've heard the South African version now is actually able to fight the vaccine, and so doesn't even work on it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. We're going to be locked down for a while, whether we're out of it in 3 months, in 6 months or longer. What I do know is the next 6 months is an absolute opportunity to invest when others are not. So this was the lesson from last week. We then, if you go onto Perks at Work and under Community Online Academy, there's a new tab. I hope our team will start to add the words new so you can see which ones are new up here. But pre-resiliency training is a tab that got added. And this is the details if you actually click on the tab. So for those of you who joined the group, I think it was pretty impressive. Out of last week's class, approximately 100 individuals launched into 10 different workshops. 10 different groups led by coaches of 2 people. These are all people who have been through this training program, coaching a team of 10. You can see the different companies. I mean, I think in many ways we may miss networking and we don't even know exactly sometimes what that word means, but the ability to train with others. The ability to experience hardship, pain, struggle, and then of course, even growth with others is the key to sustained winning. And what's cool is you're seeing people from big companies, small companies, military, fortune, education, nonprofits, all working together. So a lot of your names should be up here. And we launched literally, I think in less than 24 hours, the first session that went last Friday, then on Tuesday, then on Wednesday. And then many of you wrote, or not many, but some of you wrote where you had conflicts because, a boss or someone, pulled you into a meeting and said, hey, I need you here if they couldn't make it. The coaches wrote us saying, should I kick them out, right? I mean, it's not the best thing first time. And so we've asked them to give you at least a few buys, but not too many. We only want to train and coach those who take it seriously. This is something that we are offering the entire thing for free. We had mentioned before, our belief as human development is something, that notion of educating people should be something that's free. And so this is something that we have perfected and refined and will continually iterate though. But these workshops, it's an hour a week ritual, 1 hour a week. Eventually we'll have different time slots as well. And the other thing I'll encourage you is this, the notion of a +1 in your group. Consider dragging a friend or a colleague to come join you in your group. Although they may not have started off in the first one, I believe they will be able to join right in. And there's a lot of things we're going to do with this on top of it, where we're going to be looking for, of the 10 groups, and there probably will be more launching shortly. People are applying still behind the scenes. Now we have room to start off with training 400. So we're at a quarter of the way. In terms of available coaches.
Yeah, so Chris is asking, will we be able to participate in this training? Will we be doing more? Yeah, we're going to add more, right? So we have up to 400 slots we can fill now. So If you weren't here last week and you want to join, let us know. You can either email us at megachar@nextjump.com or on the site that we have pulled up right here. There's a little section where you can just put your information in and we'll get back to you. So,
Yeah.
Paula can put the link to a join, or you can email us. So,
and the other part is this. So we're gonna walk you through some of the schedules as it goes through the next, I guess, 11 weeks left in this 101 course, 1 hour a week ritual. A lot of things will happen in it. We're looking for ways to actually provide coaching from myself and Megan to some of the top people, most engaged, improving, and kind of taking this the most serious. There's the flip side, which is the team that also is in the top 2. We're looking to throw in some surprise and delight things, which is we will pay for kind of experiencing some of the top fitness trainers in the world working out together as a group, just for your group. So stay tuned, a lot more cool stuff coming around the corner. Having said this, let's go into what we want to talk about, goal setting. This poster or picture on the right here is the
All
poacher.
Valley Championship. Everybody knows, right?
Well, if
have
you've
to
watched
have
the
seen
movie,
Karate
right?
Kid. You have to have seen it.
It's the scene where Mr. Miyagi goes and basically asks, Cobra Kai in their dojo, basically, please leave Daniel-san alone, stop bullying him. And he points to the tournament and said, let me train him and I will meet you in the tournament. And I can't remember how much time they had, but of course it was not 6 months. It was pretty short. And basically shot for a big goal. So we call a moonshot goal. And then of course he went on to make Daniel-san, sand floors and paint fences and training in whole 9 yards. But this notion of why it matters to set a goal, a big goal. First off, you can't improve unless you see or know your gaps. We all have gaps. And gaps from where we could be, where we want to go, but you won't see it unless you try to do something big. So unless you try to shoot and get in the arena for something big, something out of reach, you won't see your shortcomings. And of course, that right goal is a goal where change is not optional. Change will be required. A goal where you will have to grow, you will have to improve in order to accomplish that goal. It's not about just going through the administrative, tactical aspects of hitting some goal. You have to get better. People who sign up for a marathon oftentimes, it's not because, hey, I run marathons, just going to chalk another one up for the sake of putting number 26 marathon on my list. No, they pick something they've never done, and then they train for it. And then they prove to themselves this notion. Life, you will see more than anything else, is a journey of self-awareness. And self-awareness actually has 2 parts. You have to know where you are now, but you have to also experience where you can get to. Can get to is important because that is a moving target. The notion of a fixed versus growth mindset. We as human beings are wired to continuously, in an unlimited fashion, grow and get better and better. But this is something that you will never understand reading it, watching it, observing someone else. You have to experience it. Meaning, if you don't taste improvement, it does not matter. It does not mean much. And so that is what we will help you do in the course of the next 6 months. Not only get in the arena, shoot for something big out of reach, right? But we will be training you through simple protocols of how to grow. Every one of you in this class taking the workshops will experience growth. And many we have worked with across every industry will talk about how even 3 days working with us, they talk about still, I think even going back 5+ years back, that was the most growth they've experienced in their lives. So if 3 days can do that, imagine what 6 months could do for you. So we shared the slide before, this kind of watermark slide in the back, the notion that as human beings, we are never still. We're always moving. The only time you're still is before you're born and once you die. Living is moving, and you're moving in one of 2 directions. You are getting better or you're getting worse. And I think the biggest misnomer people have is that, well, I'm staying the same. Organic matter, organic beings are not meant to stay the same. If you are stuck, you are getting worse. We mentioned before in the Navy, they say you're drifting, you're moving forwards or you're drifting backwards. Others are moving forward. So if you're stuck, you are moving backwards. Children in school,
It's like relative
if you're
to-
stuck,
yeah.
you're going backwards because everyone else is moving up, right? And this will happen in your career, people around you. And so this notion of when you are getting worse, you get to a place that is bad. When you're getting better, you get to a place that's good. But research shows, our own behaviors show, the predominant driver of human behavior is fear. Now, you would think you want both, because you do want both. But the predominant driver that makes us change, that makes us act, do something different, is actually fear.
Mhm.
That need to survive, that need to protect ourselves is actually a stronger muscle, a stronger stimulant than the need to actually get better or improve. We need both, but just recognize that. However, this notion of if you keep getting worse, you lead to somewhere bad. If you keep getting better, you lead to somewhere good. Most of us leave this very fuzzy. So I'm going to show you the different scenarios. We know people who are optimists, right? Optimists by nature have a very clear picture maybe of getting better and what good and winning looks like. But they kind of put a blind eye or blinder against, well, what happens if it doesn't work? All that change and all that betting and all that investment, if it doesn't work, it crashes down, right? What happens?
Mhm.
They kind of don't want to look at it. This idea of, I think about the positive, but the negative, I kind of leave it fuzzy.
Mhm.
So they have a sense of what winning looks like, but they do not have a clear sense of what losing looks like. That fuzzy bad. And so they are the individuals we often observe doing reckless decision-making, reckless acts. There's the flip side, right? Someone who actually has a clear sense of what failing looks like, what bad things can happen, right? Not today, but looking into the future, right? If you follow this trend and the pandemic keeps going this way, and I can get a real clear visual, right, of what bad looks like, but the good is fuzzy. I guess I could win, I could succeed in life. Maybe the experience would be good for me, but you leave it fuzzy. They won't take risk. You see what happens is what we can't see. They talk about vision. Vision is something you should be able to visualize, almost like a movie, like a picture. If you can't visualize it, it alters what you're going to do ever so subtly, or sometimes in a big way too. I have a strong visual of bad, but a very fuzzy visual of good. You won't take risk. Now, the state that is the worst that most of us get into, right?
Gets
Yep,
it,
that's
yeah.
it. That is the worst that most of us get into, is leaving both sides fuzzy.
Yeah.
I can't get a strong visual on what bad looks like. I can't really get a strong visual on what good looks like, or maybe I don't even want to.
I don't even want
right?
to. I
It
think
kind of
that's what
depresses
happens.
me.
Yeah, I don't even
right?
want to think
You
about
know,
it.
and people
right?
do that. I don't want to get all pumped up and excited for good, because then I get my hopes down. Or like, I don't want to get depressed on the bad, so I want to numb out.
Mm.
In the pandemic, you know, one of the top things that exploded in sales, alcohol. It's funny, it's considered an essential service.
Yeah.
A liquor store is considered an essential service during the pandemic. I mean, we have local businesses all around us shutting down. The liquor store is just, people are lining up.
No
Right?
LHF over on this side. Thank God. I had
Um,
like an amen, you know?
but-
You need a little bit of it.
But whether it's liquor, whether it's binge watching Netflix and
Mhm.
Disney Plus and every other prime,
Binge watching.
I mean, it
Binge
doesn't matter
watching
what it is.
with wine, even
Right?
better.
Video games exploded,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're talking about just different ways to numb out.
Yes, especially when you have kids, Carly. Yes. You need a lot of it.
Numbing out. Now, there's always a place for this. Look,
Yes, this is where the balance,
it's not
yes.
like this stuff isn't human
No.
and isn't a place.
You're not a bad
It's just that
person.
when it's overdone.
Right.
And more importantly, when you don't recognize the cost of it,
Mhm.
when you are numb, the number one thing we do is we blow time. The lead time we need, and time is something you can never get back. We blow the time. If you look back the last 6 months, most of us blew the last 6 months. Those of you who are here at least learning and training and whatnot. And by the way, we've received amazing notes in the tens of thousands, even pictures of people saying, here's what I looked like before the pandemic. And then through the pandemic, taking classes just on Thursday, here's my body right now. I mean, it's amazing how people have changed physically.
Mhm.
But the notion of transforming on the mind, even more important. We'll go into this more over the next several lips. The notion of when you think about change of a human being, I want you to think of this percentage. 15% is the body, 85% is the mind. But the mind is so hard to change, we often start with the body. And the notion that you need to score high enough, I mean, at least become a B student, if not a A, which is 95, impossible to get there without changing the mind. It is the biggest muscle, the biggest component of human beings. It can both make you sick, but it can also both make you win. But the notion of that mind is what we attack here. Every other class you see here, we have a lot of stuff for the body: sleep, exercise, nutrition. But this notion of winning, if you want to win, you need to invest the time to get a clear visual of what good looks like,
Right.
but a clear visual of bad looks like if the trends continue, if things continue for you.
And so Chloe is asking, what does the greed part mean, right? Because we have fear, right?
Greed
Fear
is
and
like we
greed.
want
What
to
you
win.
want.
We want
What
good.
you want, the good.
No, you know, like
Winning,
success,
winning.
winning. We want to win. Fear is we don't want to lose.
Point is, I think last week we talked a lot about, I think we shared maybe some examples around what winning looks like. What do you want, right? But it's equally, if not more important, to figure out what you don't want. And I think that's insight, right? That fear is a more powerful driver of human behavior. So to articulate what you do not want, and I think some of you in the pre-resiliency training last week experienced that, right? And it's hard because you have to think about it, you have to look at it, you have to face it. In many cases, people will be more motivated saying, here's what I don't know what I want, but I definitely don't want this.
Mhm.
Like Charlie said last week, I definitely don't want the last 6 months to be representative of the next 6 months of my life. That at least you don't want. But to articulate in more detail, that's the bad. The good is, but what I really want is, but anyways, we found that a lot of people struggle to figure out what they really want, but they really know what they don't want.
And so being able to see both, very important, very, very
Mhm.
important. So this is a diagram we had shown before, this idea of 51% being the majority versus 49%. You know, the picture on the right about a horse, you know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. You'll see the importance of this peer coaching group. Although we have experienced coaches helping guide you, this notion of a small team, a small group, very much like churches. The value of the church comes from a network of small, like sort of like workshop groups. Small groups is what they call them, actually. I'm going to talk about intrinsic motivation separated from extrinsic motivation. Once again, they're both in green in one hand, a background, but one is clearly better than the other. Intrinsic is driven from within. Extrinsic is actually influenced or even not driven by somebody else. Now, this is something that's really important. Who does this exercise, as in fuzzy to clear, of your good and bad, where you're heading, where it could go, right? Because nobody knows the future. You could go bad, you could go good in terms of winning or losing. But this bad or good, this winning or losing, this greed, which is when we want to win, fear of not wanting to lose, who does the exercise matters. Meaning if the coach, an adult, an authority figure, a boss, a teacher gives you where you're heading, right, bad, or where you could head, good, it has value, but not nearly as much as if you do it yourself. The ability to articulate, write it down, refine, when you can visualize, like vision, both good and bad visuals, an image, a picture, a movie of both of those. The value and the strength of that is literally 10 times higher than if someone gave it to you. So this is an important part of that exercise. I don't know if we've shared this diagram before, this idea that when you look in the past 6 months, it could be tied to your body, but I encourage you more and more, move beyond just the physical body and move to the mind. The ability for what have you accomplished? Have you grown? Have you gone tougher, stronger? Is your speed of decision-making faster? Are you able to make sense of stuff at a better rate and be more accurate, faster than anybody? Because when you look back the last 6 months, most of us are not going to like what we did, as in we didn't do much. You might have said, no, I watched more news than I've ever watched before, right? And you might have considered that doing something. I think doom scrolling is a term that's happened a lot now. You're just scrolling for doom. And maybe the president change, you feel like less doom will come. Like the media has figured out that fear sells more than anything else. So they're writing different variations of doom, and that will never end. I don't see that end. And so this notion of what did we actually do? did we do what human beings are wired to do, which is get better, to grow, to improve? Or did I just hibernate for 6 months? And if I have hibernated for 6 months and I'm not changing anything material, remember the whole change will, like, it's almost like it will be required. You like that notion, what did I say in the first part? A goal where change will not be optional. If you're not making material change, the hardest part to see is to see that the last 6 months is exactly what will mirror the next 6 months coming up. That what will be versus what you believe might happen, that sunshine versus the rain cloud or the storm, you are heading towards B, not A. And to be able to actually know that that is a true option of exactly where you're heading. Everything bad you've experienced, you're going to experience one more time for 6 more months, and then in totality, having blown a year, not 6 months. We want you to having, lost 6 months, not 12. And that's what we're going to change. But this notion of at the bottom, so then what is this? What do you not want? Can you get specific? Can you go from being fuzzy to clear? And then at the very top, this is that big goal. What do you want? A 6-month goal. That's what we call the visible future. And what will be important is this goal, honestly, it will not matter what you pick. But what will matter is that it's going to be something hard, something out of reach, something worthy of having you upgrade to get better for. Because if you can accomplish that goal right now without changing anything, that is not a worthwhile goal. That is not a goal that will help you grow and improve and become stronger, better, healthier, smarter. It is a goal that basically says, I can do it in my sleep, and my eyes closed. Practically, then it's not a good goal. So it doesn't matter what it is, but the act of this goal done right will help you get a psychological mirror of where your gaps are and help you improve.
Carla's asking from the Navy, like, how important is it to identify a goal that you have control over versus a goal that requires others to participate or contribute?
So I think about, first, when you think about a goal, this is where, we call it the logical brain versus the intuitive brain. Make sure you don't start by filtering your goal through too much logical brain. And what I mean is, well, given the money I have, like the idea of a visceral goal, right? And by the way, you will see also the green goal up there is easier to do once you first articulate what you don't want. If you don't get the cobwebs out, right? The muck of what is buried in your swampy mind of what you do not want, you will struggle to properly articulate the top. So you'll see these polarizing, kind of oscillating elements of human behavior. Once you get a clear visual of the bottom, you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to avoid that. Now, what do I want? And so you want to look for that visceral, like kind of, I want this. So we have, for example, one of the people we coach, his high school daughter is graduating, and he wants the party of a lifetime. And the visual he had instantly was the movie Godfather, I guess, there's a wedding scene, which is the biggest wedding you can imagine. He wants that Godfather wedding for his high school daughter's graduation coming up in May/June. And to the point where everyone will start to call him the Godfather, that kind of visual.
I don't think he actually wants to be called the Godfather.
Well, so,
but,
so
maybe what you want.
So like, once again, a coach can help embellish and add to whatever someone's visual is to make it's like he drew a skeleton diagram. I had a lot of color to it.
But I think what's interesting, what Carla's asking though, because we've been talking about this with our operational 8, our team at Next Jump was running our business. It's the control piece, what you have control over. This is actually really interesting. I think we'll get into this more over the weeks, but you have to set something that clearly, if it's really big in the business, right, that you're working in, you're going to need team, but it's really important to figure out like what you can do out of the gates first without needing, well, I'm going to set up this team and that team has to get their piece done. And when they all are set up, I'm going to go and get this done because it feels like I don't have control over it. I mean, I can't get that done. I'm not in control of this whole thing.
We talked about some of it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get
into
there.
The presentation, but this idea of, remember, you are the change maker.
Right.
You will be the one growing and changing, and that will be the single biggest agent of you getting this goal done. So people then go, I guess what I look at it is like, you can have a debate about, well, does it have to be a goal that includes other people? It doesn't include other people. Can it be a goal that it's only about me so I can go
Yeah.
solo and not need anyone?
Yeah.
Perfect example is what's happening with the vaccine. I think I shared last week. The scientists who invented the vaccine from Moderna invented it over a weekend. I think there was two
Yeah.
individuals over a weekend, right? But does it matter if you can't get the vaccine into people's arms? Right? This idea that, wait, so they got one part done, but the other part mattered too. And now you got to work with people,
Yes.
right? And the challenge is actually working with other people.
That's where it's breaking
Right?
down.
And so like there are many components that will matter,
Mhm.
but like it's one of those things where, for example, if I was that scientist,
Yeah.
the wrong goal would be, I want to be the one who invented the vaccine
Right.
versus I want to create the vaccine that ends this pandemic,
Mhm.
that kills this
Mhm.
virus or removes it.
That's the big goal.
It's a subtlety that's different. One is just about me bragging rights. I invented the vaccine. Now you guys do whatever you want. The other one is I want to end this pandemic,
Yeah.
right? That's a worthy
Different.
goal,
That's different.
right? And then when the goal is set right, and I believe the scientists, if you could viscerally say what you really want, was that it wasn't about the bragging rights of I made a vaccine that works, but nobody uses it. They actually will want to say, I want to end this virus, right?
Mhm.
This bad thing happening, I want to end it. I want to create the vaccine that ends it. That's a goal.
Mhm.
And that visceral goal starts as viscerally as that. And then you add in other components as it comes alive.
Yeah.
Be careful we don't logic our way out of the goal before we even start. A visceral goal, remember, is less about the goal. It's more about trying to get you to grow. We need something. I mean, no different than
Yeah.
for Daniel's son in Karate Kid. Was it really about being the winner of the karate championship?
No,
For him, he didn't even
no.
think he could even make it past round one.
I think what he really didn't want, he didn't want to get bullied anymore.
Yes.
That was his, I do not want to get bullied anymore. I don't want to feel like a loser. I don't want this to keep happening to me. It wasn't, I want to win this championship, right? I mean, he was really motivated by not wanting to be bullied.
But he
Period.
needed that
needed
North
that,
Star,
yes.
that 6 month, less than
Yes.
3 month, whatever goal,
Yeah.
to be able to then give reason to train.
Mm-hmm.
This is training with a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's almost like, it's like if you train without mission,
Yeah.
you'll see it doesn't work. You need that mission to train, and that mission has to be out of reach so that it forces you to get better.
Mhm.
This is one of the first pages. So the 10 teams of 10 in these pre-resiliency training programs, PRT is what we call it. If you haven't already started this process, right, we're going to walk you through in parallel and lip and help you navigate through all of these as you go through. But the big question it's really saying is this: if you keep getting worse, you might say stuck, right? But if that keeps happening, not only looking backwards for 6 months, but for 6 to 12 more months, 3 to 5 more years, what happens? What's that visual, that fear that you really don't want to happen? And get specific, paint a picture, write the words, write the emotions, what will happen? And then the follow-up question to that is, if it keeps happening, right?
Mhm.
And you keep getting worse, how will it impact the people around you? Your loved ones, your colleagues, right? I mean, everything you can imagine. And you have to put the time. And this is like a puzzle, a work of art that you need to go and make your, really fast version. And then as you spend time,
Yeah.
it will come alive more and more.
And this is what, so Chris is asking, he needs to adjust his DD a little bit after hearing this, the goal setting. And then Simon saying it's about the aim, fire, adjust. Yeah, it's never like done, right?
Mhm.
It'll constantly be adjusting and tweaking as you go through this process. It's never going to be fully done. I mean, you do need to have something at some point, you just say, good enough, that's the goal. Because what you just said, you need the mission to train so you get better. It's not about winning that tournament necessarily, right? It's about using that to train to get stronger.
If you get better,
Yeah.
literally, that's the most important part.
thing.
The world will open up for you. The
Mhm.
options and choices that come to you when you level up, when
Yeah.
you grow, you don't even see what that is because you are where you are.
Valerie's asking from KPMG, what are some tips and tricks to hone in and define the good versus bad more clearly? And
So one of the
This
tips, by the
exercise
way,
here.
so
Mhm.
these workshops are built and week
help
by
you do
week
this.
to help you go through this as a team, by the way, as you share.
Mhm.
The worst is when you do it just solo by yourself because you won't see your blind spots
Mhm.
and you need the reaction and the feedback from the team as it goes, and the coaches will guide you as well.
Right.
But the first tip is this: you have to start with the bad before you go to the good. When you go schizo and good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, before you know it, you'll go right in the middle. It's almost like you need to rock one way before you rock the other way. And the way to rock first is the human inertia, the human, sort of predominant driver of behavior change is actually fear, which is why you need to get that out of your system first before you start to focus on what you want. And most people kind of say, I'm going to park my fear, suppress that thought, don't think about it, right? It's like, don't think about the pink elephant in the room, right? And now focus on positive, how to win.
It's denying.
And you don't even understand how everything is flavored with a sprinkle of malaise, with some black muck, because you haven't gotten the other one out of your system. It's almost like, I always think about horror movies. If you ever watch a horror movie, so I know some of the scariest ones you've watched.
Aren't we in one right now?
We are in one right now. The scariest horror movies are the ones where you cannot see the demon. It's far worse in our heads. And once they show it to you, you're like, oh, come on, that looks fake. That's CGI, or like, it looks like a Halloween costume. But the demon you cannot see, right? I remember like, I'm blanking the movie now, years ago. There's one. No, there was another one that was like Blair Witch Project, I think, or something. I remember like me and Greg, we went to watch it and we were like, couldn't sleep at night because it's so scary because they never showed you what the demon was.
Oh yeah.
Like, so you're leaving the movie in your own head, managing the scariest thing possible that you knew was around you everywhere, but you could never see it. Like taking that demon and putting it, they always say, shining a light on your fear, shining a light on what losing looks like and how it will hurt and impact your life is literally the battle you have to do. And that battle is, winning that battle is often all you need to do. It's amazing. Bringing it to light is actually the cure. Now you have to do the opposite, which is bring to light what winning looks like too. Otherwise, all you do is, as I said, avoid taking risk, right? This diagram we've used years ago, loved. This idea that the tiniest change done, in this case, 1 hour a week ritual, training as a team of 10, is to make these 1 degree changes. And done right, it will change your future. It will take you from heading towards a storm cloud to sunshine. And that notion of it will take work though. These small changes are harder than you think, but they are small, but small done, right? Think about what you're doing. You signed up for a 12-hour workshop. And how many of us do this, by the way? In companies and executive positions and offsites, it's easy to have a 12-hour training day. That usually is a 1 intense day workshop, or maybe 2 days, 6 hours each. And we do that. And I know anyone who's been through those realizes they do virtually nothing. Within 2 to 3 weeks, it's as if you didn't even go to the exercise. But the difference of being in the arena, training with 8 to 12 peers, but just the same 12 hours, but spread over 12 weeks with a consistent ritual, that discipline of what you do there will have greater change and greater impact in human being. And that is the better way to change. Although the intense things are also of purpose, it's usually just to jumpstart you into a consistent program.
You know, the lowercase Simon saying, I think I'm getting worse. I watched so many webinars from all sources that I'm lost. I just wanted to say this. I feel, growth happens in levels. We're all going up and down in our life. It's never like a linear path. I think, generally speaking, when you're in that upward trajectory and you feel like you're winning, like, everything else is not, right? There's like a visceral, you feel like you're in that growth mode and you're winning and you're accomplishing something that or you're not. And I think there's no shame in that. It's just, that is what life is. I think why we're.
That was one of the more insightful things when we did a lot of work with professional sports athletes, right? The idea that you get worse before you get better.
Yeah.
Think about a golf swing or a tennis swing. You want to change your grip and whatnot. Suddenly you're like, I can't even, before I used to at least get par, but now I can't even get par in golf.
Because when you're leveling up,
before you do better.
When you're trying to level
Change
up.
Something that is an innate default behavior in you.
Yeah.
You will do worse before you do better. Learn to coach someone, learn to give feedback, learn to, be truthful, visceral, right? I'm going to put my mind out there. Trust me, the first time you do it, you will do worse. You will insult people, you offend people, but you need to fight through that hardship, that pain before it gets good. The good and all the great is on the other side of hard, but we give up too soon because you don't realize changing something organic is different than changing something mechanical. Mechanical changes, you change the chip, it should work or not work. It's binary. Human beings don't work that way. It takes time to process that. And in fact, it usually, what we found working with the best in the medical field was it takes roughly 90 days. But if you apply a consistent training ritual, so expect to get worse. Some of you, we've seen the notes, like a lot of information flows up to Megan and I from the 100 people training last week. Some of you had amazing impact just on one session. Be prepared for really nothing or bad happening too, because training and learning as human beings is never linear straight up. It's up, down, there's even plateaus, and then you shoot up again or go down. But directionally over time, you want to move up to your upper right. That's the key. Yeah. It's like trying to lose weight, trying to get in shape. You know, when you first start losing weight, you're like, oh my God, I cut out carbs, I cut out sugary drinks, weight's dropping straight down. And then suddenly you might get to a place where either plateaus or you're like, I don't believe I'm gaining weight now. This is horrible, right? I'm eating nothing but leafy greens and no delicious white bread, but it's like, weight's like going up. Like, I don't get it. Like, and you'll see it takes adjustments of up and down before, but if you look at the overall trend, that's what you want to see. So I'm going to give you maybe just two examples when we talk about what we don't want and what we want, just sharing something for both Megan and I in the past. So this isn't the real picture because we didn't want to actually embarrass anyone. Fortune 100 company, big company, came to us.
This
with
is a
the most
pretend
senior
picture. It's supposed to be us in there with these people. And it's,
yeah. So the two men, like sandwiching sort of the blonde lady here. Picture that as Megan and I sitting in a meeting like this, right? Huge firm. And they brought us in because we got recognized for being the best in adult development by Harvard and a whole bunch of other authors. So brought us in saying, can you help us get better, right? Can you help us get better? And we really want to, convince you to help us. And then the conversation quickly turned into a conversation of entitlement. We are way bigger than you. So now that we're X hours in the meeting, we're going to go around the room and have everyone here tell you what we want you to do for us. Right?
Literally,
what we want you to do is then take your pad and paper and write down, our barking orders.
What could Megan and Charlie do for you to help make your life and your work that much easier?
No contracts, no discussion of anything except just we're bigger. You should be privileged to sit here with us and go around the room. And there was like this excitement of, wow, these little guys will do everything we want.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of just lightly coloring what this visual really is for us. It was awful. If you've ever felt little, right? In front of someone who is more powerful, more networked, more, successful, more popular, whatever it is, and they make you feel even more little and tell you, because I am more powerful, more popular, I'm going to have you do shit for me. That literally was the experience we faced after being brought in to give them advice and help, which we were doing.
Well, we'd experienced things like that as entrepreneurs for the last 20 something years. It's not like we don't know what you have to hustle, you have to work hard, you have to do a lot of things. But at that experience was one of many in that little window that was so uncomfortable. I remember
this is in 2017, so not that far back.
16 or 17, but yeah, 17, sorry. But so when you think about what you don't want, I remember saying to Charlie specifically, I do not want to work with people like that. I don't know exactly what I want right now. I just know that is not the kind of work I want to be doing. That's not how I want to feel. That's not the kind of people I want to work with. That is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, or even the next year of my career doing. I do not want that. So then,
this visual, by the way,
this visual was very
in front of us to make sure we do not want this. Yes. And if we do not change something, this is where we will head.
Yeah.
And that led us to create a project that we called, internally, it was codenamed Project FU. Exactly what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is no greater FU than success. And one of the ways to succeed was not to have to take business with people like this. So then once we got this, right, came this. This has been hanging on our wall in our office for a long time. A fake New York Times article where NextJump, recognized by Harvard Business Review as the leader in adult development or leadership development, launches a partnership with the Navy. This is literally what good looks like. We have a visual of what bad looks like and how we had to make changes today to get there, right? 6-month goal. Took us a little longer. It was a year, but within a year of this, we ended up launching an amazing partnership. First with the head of HR from the Navy, and then eventually who became the vice chief of the Navy to actually do exactly this. So this notion of
so interesting the way we labeled it too. It wasn't, I want this like project amazingness. It was, I want to be able to tell those people. So, it's interesting, whatever motivates you, right?
Yes. But this
That's all
need
matters.
for, I think movies, think pictures, think visuals. You need a visual for both sides, but there is a sequence that really matters. So once again, busy diagram, but I'm going to walk you through parts of this really quick. On the upper right is what you're seeing. What do you want? The 6-month goal versus what you do not want. And you need to do the order of do not want first. And this idea of taking a fuzzy goal, whether you don't want or do want, fuzziness leads you to be directionless. And then once you get that done, the thing that you need to focus on is what we call jump starting. And jump start is different than sustainment. And this is where logically you will see that I don't want to get hopes up and I don't want to do this. People do usually the wrong things when jump starting. So I put over here with Megan, like what is not versus is, meaning when you jump start, you do not want to focus on scalability. You don't want to focus on sustainability. You don't want to focus on designing a system. You don't want to overplan. But instead, it is literally about speed plus boldness. Yeah. You want to demonstrate to everyone out there you mean business. And by the way, it's deliberately speed plus boldness. The number one muscle you must train yourself to do is to be able to charge out with speed. And then the second part, something bold. If you look at what we are doing and you're living through it, through LIP, through COA, we made a decision, right? While everyone's stuck in the pandemic, we are going to educate for free, right? Starting with 400, getting up to 50,000, to hundreds of thousands, to millions. We are going to create leaders. We're going to do it with speed. And what you saw last week was literally within 24 hours, and we came up with the idea of 24 hours before with the actual thing. So you're talking about within 48 hours of just inventing the decision to actually go make it happen, and people start training. Speed plus boldness. Demonstrate to everyone you mean business. That's jumpstarting. Now, as we go through, we're going to use LIP over the weeks. You're going to get to a place you move up and then you get worse before you get better. You will get to a place where you want to quit. It gets tough. You're going to want to quit. You're going to think this is not worth it. Even if it's an hour a week, you're going to get to a place that you believe you won't be able to hit your goals. And that's when we'll take you through the exercise, just when you need it, of doubters and believers and how to get extra fire when the challenges show up. And then where you want to get to is sustainment. Sustainment is now designing for consistency, discipline being more important than willpower, understanding triggers and using triggers to create new rituals in tiniest of ways, tiny changes. System setups, this is the whole team sport and whatnot, which once again, that question Carla asked, in Jumpstart, that question is not as relevant. In sustainment, it is. And a lot of times we like to plan ahead, right? So I'm actually a really, planning person. So I want to plan beyond my success of jumpstarting this thing into then when other teams come and I have to rely on them. And I'm worrying about that as opposed to, make the jumpstart happen.
So how do you tell if
As
you're
a
over planning?
demonstrator.
Tiffany's asking, how can you tell if you're over planning?
Usually people who ask the question like that are over planning in general.
Yes.
The best way I think of over planning, and they say this, by the way, in almost every major software or even startup creation, don't overthink it. Don't over plan. Just go add value, create value, make something amazing happen. It's what we call awesomeness. We have this thing called Project Awesomeness,
Yeah.
visceral thumbs up. And in fact, they emphasize do something that is painfully not scalable, that is painfully not sustainable, but make sure it's at that bar of awesomeness. Not like, that's pretty good. You know, like that, you know, when we say visceral thumbs up,
Then it's
like
worth scaling and worth
wow.
figuring out.
You know, when you get a review or reaction from friends or customers, that reaction where it's like a visceral, like, oh my God, that was amazing. You know, have you ever tasted food? You're like, that's gold. That's amazing versus,
yeah,
that's pretty good. You don't want, that's pretty good. Jumpstart is about shooting for that.
Can I tell you, because
Yeah.
there's a lot going back and
Yeah.
forth with Simon feeling lost, and I love that the community is jumping in to help him. It's awesome. A bunch of different good suggestions of what to do. In terms of the skills, there's, you know, when you feel you have a lot of skills, so I can't read you all this chat, but a lot of skills you feel aren't being utilized. You have a lot of skills that are not being utilized in your job. I'll tell you, there's one trend that is not going to change for the next 100 years, is learning how to do human development and how much we can change and upgrade and grow is so far from being figured out. The mind body connection, the mental health. I mean, it is so nascent. So learning this skill, you can take it anywhere you go, because if you learn how to grow yourself, you can teach others how to grow, and getting that flywheel of student teacher. And that's why I think in this PRT program, the goal is get in there yourself, then you can start teaching it. We created the certificate. If you weren't here with us last week, the certificates, you can get trained and certified to teach these classes, because they're, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's never going to run out, right? Because as human beings, you always need to be part of team. You're always going to need team.
Can't you also on the skill though? It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I think of sometimes, like I think a lot of us believe we have like a bucket of skills, right? God, if people could only give me a chance, discover my skill set. Usually you'll find it's more like baking. You know, when you bake, the order matters. And sometimes, you know, like you're supposed to put the milk and the water before you put the dry goods of flour and yeast. But if you do it in backwards order, it produces something very different, which is not really called bread or muffins or whatever it is. It produces the wrong thing. Like the intricacy of understanding what sequence, what order, in what amounts, the application of the skills, once again, far more important than whatever the skill you have. The number of people you can hire on the cheap now at a global level of talent for the same skills, that is so much cheaper, faster, easier now. But knowing how to apply which skill and what order and where you need it and what quantity, that takes judgment. That's hard, which is why the application is what's going to matter more. And so a huge part of this is we get so used to being followers. We've all been trained for 100 years. Organizations, even schools, institutionalized and built to create followership. The notion of leadership, where you have to decide which skill comes in what quantity, and then when it doesn't work, make the adjustment, try again, where you have to make something happen. Versus if someone could just tell me what to do, I'm skilled. I have skills to apply, right? Give me a speech to give and I'll give a great speech, right? Give me a spreadsheet with numbers to analyze, I'll do it. Like, that's followership skills. Every organization, and we have spent time with all sizes at all levels, is starving for leadership. The ability for someone to make something happen out of nothing. Take a situation which feels impossible, that we're limited in choices and options, and they literally create and invent options and choices that did not exist. They start to actually change little things, and just optionality keeps opening up. Winners keep having optionalities. People who are not winning, that getting worse, it feels like everything, the walls are caving in. I have less choice now, less options, less choices. You know what? I really can't do anything. Versus the people who are winning, they can't sleep because there's like, wait, there were 6 choices. Now there's 12, there's 50 now. Like they have to say no more times than just to say yes. They spend more time trying to say no to the different paths. And a lot of times the people around us are busy telling us, hey, take this path. I was like, hey, you need to learn to take the paths in your life.
Carla, I think I was just scrolling through actually, Carla saying how challenging this is, right? she's saying, I'm not overly creative or emotional. I'm a planner, right? I think a lot of people putting a goal out there without a viable path to achieve it seems like setting yourself up for failure. That is a very common feeling, right? Like, and to work with ambiguity, to be able to navigate ambiguity and adjust as things are happening, put out the North Star, get started, and then adjust. It's very, for most people, this is like,
The whole launch quickly, iterate like
It's-
hell.
it's hard.
Like a lot of people are sometimes better in the,
Yeah.
once things are matured. I think the way, there was years ago, one of my mentors, this guy named Vikas, he said this to me, Charlie, most people are trained and good at working on built ships. Very few people know how to work on a ship that's building on the ocean while moving, right? Learn to work on a building ship, as in the ship is moving in the water while moving. That is the new skill you need. Not the, hey, I can join an organization or ship that's built. Then there's like, everyone's got roles and responsibilities and chores, and I'm really good at no, the world needs more people who know how to work on like planks thrown on the water that need to move. And if you don't move fast, the thing drowns, and maybe it's not even a ship. It might be a submarine or even a, a F-45 or a rocket ship to the moon. Like the notion of being able to build while moving. That's what he said the world's, and this was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, but I've read this for most of you who are trying to figure this out, this is where like it feels like stomach churning, right? Because
the good news is this.
We're doing this with you.
Map the calendar, right? And this is where I'm going to give it to you as easy as possible in autopilot, but you have to do your parts. So July 1 is the date. If you go and take this seriously, you should materially improve. And the litmus test for that is not from me or Megan, it's from the people around you. We have found when people grow and change, the first people to notice that change tends to be either be a spouse, a parent, or your children. Someone literally at home will say, are you like doing something different? Like eating different? Like they will start to question, because what you will notice when they start to do that is the default you has changed. And they're not saying like you become a worse person. They're saying something changed, usually for the better. What are you doing? And most people it's hard to believe. It's that 1 degree ritualistic change was the thing done consistently over 12 weeks, then done again over 12. That's the stuff that makes change. So 1 week has gone by since we started on the 14th, right? Every week, you should make a calendar like this for yourself. You need to cross out and you need to see time passing, right? The major checkpoint we're going to shoot for is February 25th. That was 6 weeks from last Thursday. We will work on this rhythm, right? And we're going to train harder and harder. And the training, by the way, right? So I would pick a calendar like this and have it, right? For yourself. This is the last slide I have. There's 2 things happening in parallel. So understand what we're doing here. At the very bottom is basic training. Basic training is going to be important. We had shared before this notion of purpose, truth, action. You need the truth. I can't tell you how much more human beings will succeed, no matter what they do, if they just knew the truth. The problem is this: the truth is all around us. The people holding the truth on you are the people closest to you all around you, but they can't tell you that truth, because you have made it so difficult. We all do this, self-protection. It's what they call the psychological immune system. That notion of what we call RABs, red arrow behaviors. We put out signals that make it difficult for the truth to come to us. So the first 12 weeks of training is to not only help understand what you want, not get and whatnot, but in the process, as a group of average of 10 people, we're going to help you dial down, not eliminate, but dial down your RABs. And you will be surprised when that happens. It's almost like, wait, I've been walking around with foggy glasses? This has been around me the whole time. I mean, you will literally turn to people in your life and say, wait, why didn't you tell me this sooner? I could have improved and changed. And if they really told you the truth, they'd say, it's because you make it really difficult for me to tell you the truth. That dialing down the RAB is simply making it easier for the truth to come to you. That basic training goes 12 weeks with that. Then the second part moves from pre-resiliency training, although we'll call the PRT teams, just starting with the OGs of starting there, moves to resiliency, which is now knowing how to play offense and go into difficulty, conflict, hard conversations, hard decisions, which some of you have started in parallel, which is where like it's kind of like life's important. You don't have to figure out how to eat well, then figure out how to sleep well, then figure out how to work out well. We do a lot of things in parallel, but the workshop is designed with particular focus and a sequence. But while that bottom basic training is occurring, we're going to use this Thursday LIP to do a lot of different things. Last week, we kicked off this whole right into the training right away. This week, we're talking about the importance of this goal setting, which you're doing in the workshops and exercises. And by the way, I encourage you to find a +1 and maybe try to bring them, even if that's as a guest sitting in one of your PRT classes. And they may want to join, or they may want to join a group of their own, because accountability matters. Exposing this matters. Most of this work we want to do hidden. I'd like to work on my psychology, or some of us have our psychosis, behind shower curtains alone when no one can hear and see me. That's the very thing that makes it not improve, bringing it to light. And now the beauty is this, I think our teams did this. We will make sure none of those workshops are recorded. Nobody will see what you're saying and doing. I need you to go all in. Even if it's just for 3 sessions, you're going to get challenged with stresses in life 3 times. Go all in, give it your all. And if it doesn't work, we said it's not a cult. You can leave whenever you want, but go all in. In the time you're doing it, 1 hour, go all in, be your authentic self. I love that book Megan mentioned by Glennon Doyle, talking about the only time she saw her whole self was she went to a mental institution, because everyone else started showing their whole selves. So I felt the ability to show my whole self. Mm-hmm. Be the leader in your group that helps others show their whole selves, which means go first.
Yeah, I think
that's scary.
I'm hanging on what Carla said, because this is the scariest part, right? How I don't have a viable path, I don't see it, but I'm going to declare what I want. The transparency, we talked about this yesterday. I was talking about my son, Brendan. We're trying to work to upgrade him materially and reading. He's falling behind. It's like a slippery slope we're on. So, but this notion of sharing transparently where the struggles are, what you're doing, it gives other people a chance to help you, because you never know what other people might know to help you. But we think like, oh, it's embarrassing. I don't want to share that. I don't want to get into that level of detail. They might mock me. They might be condescending, whatever it might be. But having a place where you just say, you know, and that's why the PRT is important, right? Because there's painful stuff, right? You're going to go through emotional stuff.
Well, this is the crazy part. I think what Chunyu, one of the researchers that said, most of us live a life. Yeah. It's a perception of someone's perception. It's a perception of perception, meaning I am doing what I believe you want me to do. Like the perception of a perception. Like the need, like it's almost like we all walk around thinking we know what everyone's thinking, right? I know what everyone's thinking, which is why I do this, right? And can I tell you, at least half the time we get it wrong, if not more. And this notion of actually learning what people are thinking, I can't tell you, it's an eye opener. It will literally be like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that option or that possibility. And you will be surprised at least 50% of the time, if not more. And you know what that builds over time? The humility to actually say, I have a strong opinion, but I'm curious what you're actually thinking, right? And not in a way that makes you feel this little, and in a way that makes someone so ashamed they won't tell you the truth. That's the RAB. You make it easy for them to tell you the truth. There's a lot of things, cancel cultures and everything. It just made everything hard to talk about the truth. Well, you don't need to go on the internet and talk about the truth, but in your group of 10, talk about the truth. This support group, we're going to get you to a place, whether you're even doing workouts together virtually, you will be very close. They will become awesome friends to help you improve in the game of life, learning the skill that matters most in the 21st century. And as that happens, the training program we're going to run in parallel on top is going to be giving you a view of the curriculum, of the things you need, but in parallel, while doing basic training, is to help you accomplish this moonshot 6-month goal. And I encourage you to come up with something. So this is, you need to know what you don't want, but I want you to also want something that's out of reach. And as you go through it, we will walk you through over the weeks. In parallel, these two programs will work together. So on Thursdays, we'll do that. And then what you're seeing on week number 5 here is we'll do what we call 10X coaching. The best individuals who are advancing the fastest and also being the most authentic in the workshops, we're going to have them do a 5-minute presentation of their journey up to that point in this group. And we will live coach them. Now that sounds scary, but this is where we will provide that coaching. You will provide the feedback to them. They will get a steroid, I guess it's not very good to have steroids, but it will be a boost. It will be a boost in helping them get there faster. And we will do that every, so week 5, we'll do it again on week 9, basically give you 4 weeks and then put something forward. So different things that will happen throughout this program.
Oof.
Should we go to questions?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. Yes.
So here, I'll put this in small slides so you can see a bird's eye view. Any thoughts, questions? Any of the slides can go back to.
Can I start one off that
please.
Mike asked? Mike you're in the PRT team from Prototype Training. He said, how do you qualify? You can qualify physical changes like weight loss and whatnot, but how do you qualify, or measure question. The change in mind, right? This is like the baby metrics, the visceral,
great
right?
Question.
Yeah, the feeling.
The number one way, it's the people around you. They will notice it first. As I said, home first, then at work. And what you're looking for is the default behavior change, not the willpower behavior change. We can all skip, I'll use physical as an example. We can all skip carbs, skip sugary drinks for a day, maybe even a week, right? For a year, that's going to take default behavior change. It's the default behavior change. And you will see people around us are so used to us. When that mindset, that behavior changes, they literally look at you saying, wait, Megan, did you just say what I think you said? That's so not you.
Not you.
You'll hear that that's not you.
Were you just optimistic?
Yeah.
And not doomy?
It's like, wait, yeah, that's the thing.
That's what it is.
They will notice it first.
Yeah.
And it shows up. Remember, Daniel Coyle was one of the speakers in COA. He talked about this as well. When we change and we grow, right? We're the last ones to notice it because it's just our default. But the people around us notice it. We're like, I'm just doing the same thing. Like, no, you're different. You're not the same. Like people around us notice first. So which is why you're going to need the team. You're going to need the people because they will notice you going off track, regressing back. They will notice all that stuff. But literally, home is where you will see it show up first.
How do we help Simon and a bunch of this whole skills, right? I'm an engineer of all these skills, and now it feels like you can't use it anymore. The skill of this skill, and I know in the military you guys experience this because you get deployed into different situations, and so you have to take all your skills. It's learning how to, when you're stuck, getting unstuck, how to motivate teams, all that stuff, it's like all encompassed in what we're trying to teach, which is it's like the skill of life, which I know sounds really cheesy.
So the way I look at it is this, whether it's coding, if you're a coder, whether it's like using spreadsheets or whether it's you're just a good writer, right? Like these skills do matter, but what you're not realizing is it's almost like the 80% value, it's like the main, if you go to a fancy restaurant, they may have garnishings and mashed potatoes and other fancy little sauces and whatnot, but what's the main meal? Is it a big steak? Is it a salmon? That big thing that matters most. That's the part that we're missing because then that will enhance every skill you have. That notion of human judgment, our ability to navigate and make the right calls. People call it decision-making, they call it judgment, they call it like sense-making skills, right? Like that skill. If you can do that faster with greater accuracy than anybody else, every other little technical, tactical, every other thing is only going to be enhanced by that. But you can be the best coder in the world, the best writer in the world, the best presenter in the world. But if you pick all the wrong stuff, it won't matter at all. You'll get passed up. People won't care. And that's the part that people aren't seeing. Because we were raised in 100 years of followership. Someone else made that call. Someone else made that call, and I just had to go do it. You know, promotions and career paths were so defined. It was like so like mathematical and formulaic
Mhm.
because in the followership world, there was a tremendous amount of clarity for most things.
Right.
You're seeing organizations now struggle to figure out, well, how do I, what like do I have to do to succeed? And I don't know, just do better than what? Like it's like now they're like looking at the wrong things and everyone's trying to triangulate to a formula. But there's a part where it doesn't work that way anymore, and yet we're trying to jam it into the old world,
Yeah.
right? I think it was this group in the Air Force called PACE that talked about mandated leadership versus organic leadership.
Yeah.
Everything is very similar. Like you kind of have to use your brain, right?
I mean,
You know, the days
yeah.
are coming in, you can be drunk and just check in and just do the work. It's really like it's repetitive work, right? I can do it half asleep. Like that job is either gone or going away so fast. You have to learn this other job, which is I need to think, right? We were talking
Yeah.
about this. We were designing a new office. You know, most people design offices for, I say manpower, but it feels like slave power, right? So in this temporary space you're
Yes.
renting,
Oh my
right?
God.
It
you guys
literally
should
looks
see.
like prison cells.
I said
If you
to
show
Charlie,
you, like,
I said to Charlie last night, I was like, I literally feel like it's been set up like a prison. There's
It
like
really is
doors
like
that
prison.
slide and you can see out a sliver, but and they're really small. And as I was looking at it, I'm like, God, this is so far from
I mean,
anything we would ever
we're not using
like a
any of them,
prison.
but they literally are the size of
like we
prison
could
cells.
fit food underneath and be like, here you
The
go.
only
and then lock
difference
it.
of instead of a bar, it's got glass.
Yeah, it's awful.
But it's like it's
If I
slave
could
power.
move this whole thing, we
No,
would
but
show
it's
you.
slave power. It's like, but that's how
Yeah.
offices are designed.
It's really
It's
bad.
designed for manpower, brute work. You know, the biggest thing we've heard about this pandemic from leadership and leaders across companies, people are productive. They can get shit done, especially if you know what to do.
Mhm.
But when it comes to creativity, innovation, you know, new ideas, that pretty much disappeared. The inability to come up with what to do, as long as someone knows what to do, they can get it done. So that's industrial age productivity. Someone's got to decide what they've got to do. And if you do, they can all get it done really fast. But that's not what's lacking. Every organization is starving for people who can find options and choices, creative, innovative paths that didn't even exist. And that doesn't occur in prison cells.
It feels like magic. You can't do magic.
I mean,
in a
we were
prison
going
cell.
through, it's odd, like, you know, I mean, when we came up with this presentation, this week was a little challenging because we're like packing, moving, throwing away, crying from throwing old stuff. I mean, it's like just emotion. Feels like you're like, you know, leaving your house and seeing it ransacked, but then coming to a new place that looks like prison, but it's nice prison with glass, right? Come up with a presentation for the group while this is all happening. And we were like, oftentimes we have foam mats to lay on the floor to look up, you know, at the wall.
You need blood flow to your head, is all I'm saying.
And
I mean,
how hard would it
sometimes
be
it's
to
just 10
walk
minutes of
into
blood
a
flow.
company? Like
And I was
imagine,
gonna lay on the floor here.
imagine going into like the Pentagon or going into like Bank of America and you see executives laying on the floor, staring at a wall of like scribble, which looks like the whole movie Beautiful Mind. Yet that is what our mind looks like. It's just
Yes.
tons of garbled visuals and jargon, like laying there thinking, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yet that's the new norm. And how do we get there faster? How do we maximize and optimize for brain power? Oscillating on thinking can occur from taking a snack, of exercise, a sleep class, but could be actually from laughing about something. Like, how do you oscillate brain power, not manpower? How do you optimize for that? Like we came in here first, so we turned their giant conference room into our office, and we sat there and we couldn't think. We were exhausted, but we were staring at this glass fishbowl, right? That we felt we're in, and literally couldn't think. Then we started taking our papers. If you saw it, it looks like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it.
I'll show you.
Oh, right here.
If you have to go, you got to go. Just we're in rare form today, so okay. This is weird. I can't tell. So that's the outside of our office. If I showed you the inside, I think you'd get a little scared and maybe not show up anymore.
So what you're seeing there on the outside is basically this is the 38th lip class I think we taught. So that's every lip class we've taught since the beginning up there in the wall. For 1, 2, and then we'll put 38 up soon. We can go in, lay down, or go up and watch the bird's eye view of everything forming over 38 weeks of class teaching. If you go inside the office, it's even more.
Yeah, I can't
And we found even like sitting where we're sitting had to be more in the center. So it's like a hub of 360. And we have a section of the wall trying to design what it's almost, remember the movie, The Winter Soldier, right? It's like an Avengers movie with Bucky. Like the idea of how do you design, not the perfect warrior, but the perfect, sort of human, like training warrior for brain power. So we have a whole wall dedicated just to that. Think about that, the design and the experiments of that. Once again, Winter Soldier was a bad guy. Eventually Bucky became good. But how do you design that perfect warrior for the 21st century? We have a whole wall working on the why, right? The cultural change we made in 2012, but now happening in Perks at Work through COA and whatnot. We have another wall just all on this topic of development and hitting goals. Like there's different walls representing different things, all being puzzled constantly. And then suddenly you see the connective nature between, wait, the Winter Soldier is the same thing that leads to this, and then we're like, oh my God, we're going to do that.
And yes, like Simon's saying, we are running our own company so we can set it up this way. What we're telling you is the big goal we set, this huge goal we set, even launching COA was, and we've had this big bag, big hairy audacious goal forever, which is we want to change the world through changing workplace culture. It needs to change. This is the group right here, especially those of you who are doing the PRT coming every week. And if you stick to it, you will infect in a good way, not in a bad way, infect the people around you in whether you're working or you're not working right now. Even if you're working from home, you're working in the office, you're in school, whatever you're doing, you will make an impact on the people around you. When people see others who are growing, who are doing things that are different, it's like a magnet. They will glom onto you. We'll create the change little by little, but it'll have that, I hate to say pyramid because pyramid can sound bad, that scheme, but we will make that kind of impact over time.
Most of you in organizations, we do a lot of work coaching and helping people who are your bosses, if not bosses. We know what they're looking for. And the very thing they want to see is people in the organization that know how to get these things done right. Better decision-making, better judgment, better leadership. They're not looking for temporary workers who can just get done exactly what I tell you to do. In fact, they will say, if I have to micromanage you and tell you what to do, it's just faster for me to do it myself. They need people who can take ownership. The word they use often to us is, I don't want any more renters. I need owners. I need owners who will take consequence for every wrong call, but also keep building on the right. I need someone, renters want the rules of the house and what can I break and not break and how do I, it's like and I just want to do the bare minimum. Owners think around the corner, right? If I freeze the pipes and they burst and that kind of impacts other things, if the salt water rusts the nails of the house, it impacts you, but maybe not for 8 years down or 5 years down or 10 years. Like the idea of ownership thinking, not rentership. This question, Simon, you mentioned about the brainstorming being a function of change management, sitting on the floor. This whole thing about brainstorming, you know what I think about what we forget to do on the walls? This is the notion of bringing it to light. You need to come as close as possible to replicate what is going through your head and visually put it in front of you on the walls. Now, our mind moves so fast, right? Whatever you write, I think I shared this before. We type on average, if you're a good typist, at 60, 70 words a minute. We speak at 300 words a minute. Our mind races at 3,000 to 4,000 words a minute. So imagine trying to and also experience a lot of things that don't have words. The limbic brain is all visuals and emotions. Imagine trying to take that to be able to see it. And what we found as we moved into the new office, we were like sitting here, like, is it the coffee? Like our heads hurting. As soon as our brain starts showing up on the wall again, there was a freeing element because you can let things go.
You have to hold on to all these.
I don't know if you've ever, most of us use to-do lists, but I don't know if you recall the day you didn't use to-do lists and you had to keep remembering in your head, right? And some of it do the whole, I'll tie a string on one finger, then another one, or I'll have Post-it notes. I remember when I first got a job at Morgan Stanley years ago, like my to-do stuff was on Post-it notes. And then I had Post-it notes all around my computer screen of stuff to do. And then it was falling off. And like, I'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I lost that one. The cleaning person threw that one because it fell off onto the ground. Like, and it's maddening, right? Where you feel like I need to now remember all this in case I lose it. The power of that to-do list is to give your brain, I don't have to hold on to everything. And what's hard for people to understand, like physical workouts, oscillations is how you actually create, invent. You have to let it go. But to let it go, it needs to be parked somewhere, or else our fear of forgetting it makes us hold on to it. Like, we noticed in days the difference in our brain power as we were able to let things go, because I know it's in that wall. I know it's right there. I know it's right there. But when we didn't have it, it was like we're trying to hold on to everything. And it felt like I was trying to juggle 12 plates in the air while watching things. I mean, it's like, oh my God, I can't think. The whole notion, I can't think.
I mean, like all of Charlie's extra slides. Yeah, those are the parking lots, called the parking lot.
yeah.
So we don't have to, we can just drop
And
it,
you're
right? Chris?
seeing the cleaned up version of the parking lot after many arguments. So, yes.
Eli's saying, I think without belonging, it's difficult to take ownership. Just for now, you belong to this community, right? You can forever be part of this community. Like, just jump into it, right? And see what you can do. Take ownership of something that you really want. Because I agree that in companies, that belonging.
I think about sequence though,
Yeah.
right? You know, the whole thing about, like, I don't know if you know, like, people who are either monogamous versus serial, like daters, as in, like, they can never find a relationship and settle down. And they're always searching for that soulmate, that perfect one. Not you, not you, not you, not you. And you look at some of the differences. The person searching constantly for that person, that soulmate, they don't realize the problem is not the others, it's them. Like, that's the notion of better me before better you, versus the person who is monogamous, like always, it can be in long-term relationships, will say, I can make it work with anyone. That notion of belonging, you should be able to make it work in any team. You should be the ingredient that gets the team of 10 to feel belonging. You should be the leader that can make the company feel purpose and belonging. Not that I'm searching for the company, I'm searching for the team that actually.
What was the word? Because Chris has asked me in the belonging. I remember it was years ago. We had, I forget, Chris. I have to look back on it, because I remember we had built some work on, like, the sort of the sequencing of care and belonging. But you're right that there's a part of the sequence getting that right, because it's like the organization can care for you and show you belong here, or you can show care for the organization and start to trend in the right way, and then you feel belonging. And as you feel belonging, you can then do more. It's like there is a sequence to get right. And I think often people are looking for the organization to show that.
I mean, they're situational things, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about the simplest analogy of the cup filling versus overflowing, right? And this is where I think a lot of us may feel like, well, my cup is empty, so I need someone to help fill my cup.
Yes.
And you know, the other flip side is there's always someone who has less, right? When you think you have nothing, well, at least you have some fluid in there. Some people are just bone dry. There's always people with less. And the act of actually even sharing the little you have makes you then want to put more in. And there's a cycle of this giving and taking, this sort of filling your cup, better me versus better you. But I think when I think about this notion of purpose and whatnot, you'll be surprised. And we learned this from the military too. You know, it's fascinating that in the military, they say that people are not trained to die for country, despite them thinking they're dying for country, for freedom and whatnot. They actually die for each other. And the way they train them to get there is through usually what they call boot camp and training. Said another way, it's kind of what Miyagi did to Daniel Son Lo in this case. They torture you. It is tough, because what they found is through struggle, people bond. And as they bond, they're battle buddies, they're group of 4, they're group of 8 and 16 and whatnot. They die for each other. That's the importance of team. You will find that if you continue, this I can promise you, if you go even 50% all in for the next 12 weeks in this PRT group, I believe you will feel closer to them than you will in any colleague you've had in the past, practically any colleague you have now. Strangers you never met except through this class, you're just meeting 1 hour a week, you will feel closer to them. You will feel they know the real me and I know them. I can see their blind spots, they can see mine. You will then want to do workouts together. You'll want to do comedy together. You'll want to actually train with them more. You might even say, why don't we start a company together? You might, right? But you will have them. You will have them for life. And that's the kind of thing that's cool about finding a team.
Mhm.
And then comes this notion of belonging and purpose. And, this notion of, well, what do we want to do?
Yeah.
I remember there's a 24-year-old that came to visit me from this Brazilian entrepreneur years ago.
Yeah.
And he had this whole thing asking advice and whatnot. And my point to him was this: you're trying to figure out what to accomplish in life at 24. You are nothing. You have no skills. You have nothing. So
You are
obsess,
nothing. You have no skills.
but it's obsess on getting better,
Yes.
like massively better, because then you will see what you can accomplish and do will grow bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Now find a team of people you do it with, what you can go after mission-wise is
Yeah.
even bigger.
Yeah.
And that's the part where like solo can only do so much, right?
Mhm.
Team is what actually lets you do more. But you know what the best teammates are? The ones who are constantly growing. Don't you love the teammates who are always exceeding your expectations? God, I thought Megan just knew, pessimism and risk taking, but oh my God, she's getting better than me in optimism and shooting for the moon. I'm like, can I get your advice, thoughts?
That's like
You'll
everything,
find
yeah.
the most valuable people in our lives are the ones where you literally want to get their thinking,
On everything in
everything.
your life, everything.
right? I'm thinking of doing this. I'm curious what your thoughts are. You know, the people in our lives, I want to get their thoughts. I want their brain and their brain power on this thing. Can you tell me what you think? Sometimes just tell me what to do, but I just want to get your reaction.
Yeah.
What are you seeing that I'm not seeing?
It's invaluable.
How do you process what I just told you?
Mhm.
That's what we crave. That's what leaders at big companies crave. It's what colleagues crave. It's what we all are looking for. But to be able to do that, it's counterintuitive. Be the person. Train to be the person that others want to go to you
Right.
because they value your thinking. Versus I know we have people, it's the total opposite. I really don't want to hear from you. No. I don't, not interested in your opinion, right? Brene Brown calls it the whole, the most people's opinions I don't care for. She says she has on a Post-it note that's 2 by 2 inches of the only people she really cares for their thinking and their advice. Imagine growing that even to 3 by 3. Wow, that's 50% more. Then grow it to 4 by 4. Like imagine finding that team. That's the team that lets you navigate mission. Bigger
So
things.
if you want to do that, but it is difficult, right? Everybody's talking about boot camps in the military. Yes, like you have to recognize things that you do. I mean, I just said to Charlie the other day, I'm like, what are my RABs? I was thinking about this as we're going through this with you guys. Some of it is so counterintuitive. You think you're really good at getting truth. I pride myself on being authentic, right? That I share I wear my emotions on my sleeve, but I realize there's things I do unintentionally, or maybe it's a little intentional, that sends a signal of I actually don't want your feedback and I don't want you to, I don't want your thoughts on this. Either I don't feel ready to hear it, or there's so many ways that we do these things. It's part of it's so in our subconscious, we don't even recognize we're doing it many times, but it's going to be painful to hear that, right? And to hear the feedback and to recognize it yourself because you're doing it. But it's so awesome, right? Once you start to get to a place where, oh my God, I'm doing this, I can change that. And then you can start to pursue and go after the things that you really want. It's really empowering. It's really empowering.
There's a question from Simon. He was talking about brainstorming and that you put your ideas on poster notes and on the wall, right?
Facilitator groups them
I know,
together.
Simon, if you want to unmute, I don't know, I could misread your question to what I want to talk about, but
It's not really a question. It's more of a statement. Yeah.
maybe it's a statement. Maybe elaborate if you are here. You can unmute, Simon, if you're here, but you may have left.
It's interesting. Heather is asking if Simon's not here from Infotech. Do you want to unmute Heather?
Sure. My question is, I've talked to some of my friends and colleagues to share with me what my RABs are so I can improve. I do have a couple friends who have been very open and honest with me, but a couple others that I truly value their opinion, they don't want to give me feedback on that. So I feel like I've created a environment where obviously they're afraid to tell me
Right.
truth.
Mhm.
So what can I do to kind of nurture that that environment with them?
Yeah.
So actually, there are several interesting things that you can do. I don't know if you were in one of our earlier classes, we talked about this notion of EE, exploring the edges. The idea of exploring the edges is not to get the answer right, but to exaggerate it in extremes. And if you exaggerate some point in extreme, it's easier for someone to be like, no, 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 it's not that, it's actually inside here. We often make the mistake trying to get it exactly right. And usually we flower it with, so I don't look as bad, right? I'm trying to give an example, like,
yeah, like I think the example of like I could say something, you know, that's very, this is kind of related, Heather, to the rab I have, where I could be very honest saying, here's how I feel as a mother and with my kids or some situation, versus if I said, look, I'm the worst mom in the world. I feel like I'm an amazing mom. And it's weird. It's almost like it's exaggerating. It's not lying, but it's exaggerating the point that you feel so that they could say, oh my God, you're not. It's not to draw sympathy.
Right. But you have to do it. You know, we talked about ladders of inference.
To share the reasons why.
You have to put the bullets underneath have to be a lot and have to be real. Yeah. And if you put the bullets, so imagine saying, you know, I feel like a bad father, right? Or a bad mother. And these are the reasons why. I often come home and honestly, I don't even think about my kids and I wish they were kind of gone. Right? I wish I could just give them Benadryl or something and knock them out and they were passed out. Whoa. So I can have it like just, and you go into the details, right? And then there are times where this and that, you just start to go into details and explain all of it. And someone will say, oh, okay, look, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. There are things you can get better at, but maybe this ability where it's easier for someone to give you feedback dialing in, as opposed to saying, no, you're actually worse than what you say. Like that notion of exploring the edges.
Let them reel you in versus have to be the one to tell you, I don't think you're.
Which is, by the way, a similar exercise you'll go through in this whole getting worse, getting better. We're going to want to shoot in, shoot further out, right? What does it really look like when you screw up your life, right? Like really, like, and the people you hurt and all the stuff that goes wrong. What does it really look like, right? Because that's more motivating. Because remember, just because we say it doesn't mean it happens. And this is the crazy part. We think just because we say it and we share it, like now I have doomed myself because I'm going to become that bad. Or like now I've said this good, everyone's going to think I suck unless I hit that. No, like you have to shoot further in the edges for you to do better. But if you shoot here, we're going to usually get here. If you tell someone I need some feedback because I think I'm here, they're going to look to shoot inside there. And what they really want to say is even worse. They won't say it. We have to help them. That's the notion of we have to make it easy for someone to give us the critical feedback versus we make it very hard. It's like that classic example. I would love to get feedback on my presentation. I spent 3 all-nighters. This is probably my proudest work I've ever done, right? I mean, but I really want to know how to get better. You know, like as opposed to, you know what, like, hey, I put a lot of work into this, but I know there are things wrong in it, right? Like I want it to be like 10 times better, not 10%, 10 times. What would you do if you had to tear it apart, right? If you were my enemy and you wanted to criticize this, what would you say?
And how to still, because this is so hard to do, right? Giving feedback to other people, bosses, subordinates, peers, everything. It is so hard to do that one of the things you're going to experience in the PRTs will do anonymous feedback, right? Because at some point, sometimes people just need to know that you're not going to know it came from them, but they want to tell you, but they're struggling to tell you. Then people will say, well, you shouldn't need to do that. Well, the reality is you're not just, it's that hard to do. Even for people who we train, you know, there's all these hacks. I forget what LIP class it was in when we taught how to give feedback, but
how to not give feedback.
How to not give feedback. But there's so many different tips of sitting shoulder to shoulder. Like sometimes if I really want it from Charlie, I'm like, I know this is going to hurt. I don't really want to hear it, but I want to hear it. Just tell me. Right. And then I'll throw something out. Like there's just so many ways to just not eye to eye, like all these hacks, but at the end of the day.
Can I tell you one of the things that you're going to experience, Heather? I'm assuming in one of the workshops,
yes,
you're going to experience the flip side. Strangers you've never met, before you know it, you'll pick up the pattern, and then you're going to have a lot of stuff you want to tell them. If you really could. It's almost like, and so we're going to give you tools and ways to do that. And then you'll experience how hard it must be for someone else to do that to me. You need to experience both sides of the equation. So we call empathy, right? Like we usually have sympathy, not empathy. True empathy is experiencing the hardship yourself too. And so you're going to experience the flip side of the rap. You're going to see someone in the group that you want to tell something right away, but you're going to hold judgment, hold this, hold that, all the reasons why, and they're going to make it more difficult for you, right? And so now it comes a crossroad and they happen really fast. Am I going to push to train them, right? Maybe partly for them, but also maybe for me. And you're going to see that duality in the team of both sides of the equation showing up. And usually what happens is this: dysfunction, and then one person shoots out, and you'll see it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like we're training in a stale room and someone just opened the windows, gust of fresh air comes in, and then someone else opens a window. Before you know it, you almost can't go back. Then you'll get to a place where it gets bad again, right? So this is where you'll see these things happen that way. But what you'll find is this: the reason why the rituals are important is that when you need it most, it's the ritual that's going to win. The problem is this: in the beginning, it's easy. Some of you are like, I'm so excited for my group, I'm going all in. You will hit some really bleak days and bleak weeks. In the next 6 months, I can almost promise you, we're all going to have some very bleak weeks, whether it's personally or whether it's from news or something. And that's when the ritual is going to save you. The same thing you'll find on the app we have for feedback, right? People are like, I prefer giving it not anonymous, straight to their face. The problem is this: when it's the tough one that you can't say, is you're going to then love the ritual that trained you to give it anonymous to the group. Because like all these rituals will save you when it gets bad. When it's good, they almost feel like, why am I doing this? But once it gets ritualized, it's when the bad stuff hits. And I think one thing, if anyone's beyond being a baby right now, bad stuff always comes to us. And so you need the rituals for when they happen, and they always happen. Bad always comes to us. And it feels now bad seems to happen faster, and we know about it even faster. So all these things will save you when the bad storms hit, and they will hit. I guarantee in 6 months, in the 3 months, they will hit. So, Alex? All right.
I think that's
So-
good. Yeah.
Grab a colleague to come train with you. It will help.
Yeah. Mike was asking, I think, how do you get them on? Does it, you have to, you could just bring them this week, this +1, if you want to just bring them, but then you can also just email us at Megachar.
Or if not,
Or,
I mean,
know.
you have your coaches now for your PRT
Yeah, you
group.
could let
Email them,
know. Okay,
right?
let them know.
So
Okay.
we're letting them know now live.
Good
Let
idea.
them bring a guest, right? Because they'll say, I'm sure. Let them bring a guest. We ask
Yes.
them, give them a little leeway because they do have other jobs and other appointments. But at the same time, if someone misses too much, cut them out, right? It's only for those who take it seriously.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time with us.
Can't wait to hear how it goes in your second week, right? And if you haven't joined yet, if you join, how it goes. And next week, I would like to hear more about what happened in
that's
it,
true.
anything good,
Yeah,
bad. This is what I want to do.
share
but
some. Plan to come
yeah,
next week sharing
I
with
want
us
to hear
what's
some,
working, what's not working. We can do one and the other, right?
yes, and I'd like to hear some of the goals that you're thinking about. I think will
Ooh.
inspire other people.
Yes.
You know, like let's share more.
Yeah.
Right? I see Shauna's
yes.
driving always. But yeah, that would be
Yes.
fun. Let's do that next week. Can we please? Oh,
So,
thank you, Tammy.
And just so you know, we get a lot of information flowing up to us. We've heard some very cool things from some of you guys. How serious you're taking this.
Yeah.
And even after 1 week, the impact, multiple people talking about
Yeah.
the difference, colleagues
Yeah.
and family have already seen.
Yeah.
So that's 1 week.
Ruth is
right?
gunning to be an instructor of this. Yeah, she's like
Yeah.
raising the roof. She's like a different level. If you're in her group, bar is set high.
Yeah.
You know, and then she's
Elevated.
going to start teaching.
It's called pace
and
setting.
This is awesome stuff.
Yes. Very cool.
All right, you guys. We'll see you next week.